Good morning, friends. Welcome to our homestead and welcome back to our garden. Today we're talking about something that is so important if you are trying to grow food for your family and be self-sufficient, and that is your soil. And you cannot overlook the health of it. Let's talk about it. Today we are going to talk about soil chemistry and why these little test kits from the store are just a big waste of money. We're going to show you how to take soil samples for a lab analysis, and then we are also going to show you one of our old sample analysis from a lab at Stephen F. Austin University. The first thing we're going to do is talk about why you don't want to waste your money on these. Everybody, even farmers, are told to always just focus on NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and then the pH of the soil. And those are the only four things that this kit measures. There are some other kits out there that you can buy that are fairly inexpensive that will also help you measure maybe some sulfur and maybe some iron and potentially salts. Let me explain why getting a lab analysis is crucial for your garden. And it's all about the chemistry and it's all about the trace minerals in your soil. Let's focus on this one again. This rapid test is testing for NPK and soil pH. On the back is this little chart that helps you try to determine whether you're low or high on any of those that I just mentioned. Even if you see that you're low on phosphorus, let's say, how much do you add? How do you know how much is in the soil? It says it's very low, but how do you know what the parts per million are in the soil? Now, I certainly know somebody's going to say, well, people have put things into the soil over thousands of years and cultivated it and not had a problem. And while some of that is true, man has also continually messed up this earth, and sin has also messed up this earth. So what can we do to heal our soils in the garden? Well, first we need to know what's in it. So first we need to talk about pH, and while those home test kits will tell you kind of a range that your pH is in, and some of the more expensive ones will tell you actually the number, we need to know exactly what it is for best results. Something like this moisture and pH tester are going to help. And this one is obviously much more accurate than something like this. And from my lab analysis results, this actually comes pretty close. And that's great, but we need a lot more information. A lot of people think a neutral soil is good to grow in, but a slightly acidic soil, just below 7, is your best soil to grow in, and that's for growing pretty much anything. But we need to understand that the amount of organic matter in your soil really matters a lot. And it should be at least 5% or a little bit more. And the only real way you're gonna find that out is by a lab analysis. But let me list all of the other minerals that you need to know about for your soil health. Of course, we have NPK, so we're not going to talk much about those throughout the rest of the video. We need to know how much sulfur, magnesium, manganese, calcium is a big one, sodium, iron, zinc, copper, cobalt, and the next one is huge, and every living thing on the planet needs it, and not many people have ever heard of it, and that is molybdenum. Say that 10 times fast. M-O on the periodic table. We need to concentrate on getting that soil chemistry right so the biology in the soil can thrive and live properly. And if the chemistry isn't there, then the biology isn't going to work well. Unbalanced soils are what we mostly have in this country and actually around the world. And that balance is so bad that it's extremely hard to grow food. You have to pump chemicals onto them all the time. And that's not how God intended it. Let me talk about 8 of those chemical elements and how an excess of one can harm the other, an excess of one can harm a plant, deficiency in one can harm a plant. Let's go through those really quick. Let's talk about molybdenum, and that is required by all plants to metabolize nitrogen. It is crucial that that element be in the soil as well as cobalt. Cobalt is used in the formation of B12. Which is used by every single living organism on the planet. If you're deficient in those two things, then you've got a serious issue in your garden. Things can adapt a little bit, but things will not be healthy. When plants aren't healthy, disease sets in, and so do the insects. Let's talk about sulfur. Sulfur is required for a plant to be able to use nitrogen efficiently. Poor nitrogen absorption into the plant is caused by low sulfur. It's also a crucial part for seed formation and amino acid formation that aids in building the proteins in the plant. Now calcium. Calcium is the governor in the soil. It is the transporter. It helps everything transport up to the plant and through the plant. And if you are low in calcium, some of us have seen blossom end rot on tomatoes, but it also leads to a lot of other issues because it works in concert with sulfur very well and nitrogen, and it helps regulate photosynthetic performance. But if you've got too much calcium in your soil, it will inhibit uptake of other nutrients from the soil through the plant roots, and then it's going to be starved for all of these other nutrients because there's just too much calcium. So you're starting to see why balance is so important. Okay, copper. Not a lot of us get enough copper in our diet, and that's partially because it's devoid in a lot of food products. And that's because everybody's pumping NPK onto everything and not thinking about these other trace elements. Copper is required for many enzymatic activities in the plant. It's required for chlorophyll production and it's required for seed production. Deficiency can lead to less yield in grains, and it can also lead to a lot of different diseases. And then conversely, if you have too much copper, it can stunt growth. Actually, it stunts the root growth, which obviously stunts the plant growth. And then it can also inhibit the uptake of iron, zinc, and molybdenum. I've got 3 more to go, and these are also extremely important for your soil. Magnesium. A lot of gardeners add what? Epsom salts to the garden because they know it is magnesium sulfate and that the plants need it. Magnesium is incredibly important, mainly because of the reason it's the #1 element in chlorophyll production. It is the most abundant thing and centered in chlorophyll. And magnesium works hand in hand with phosphorus in the plant. It helps that phosphorus be more mobile, and it helps the plant utilize that phosphorus better. And while helping to transport the phosphorus, it also helps transport sugars and starches. Deficiency in magnesium means poor plant growth and stunted plant growth. But be careful, if you've got too much magnesium, that inhibits calcium uptake into the plant. Next one is iron, and iron really helps in a plant move oxygen around the plant to the stems, roots, leaves, everywhere. But be careful, too much iron and your plant will die. An excess of other nutrients won't necessarily kill your plant outright, but if you've got too much iron, there will be iron toxicity and your plants will die fairly quickly. Because too much iron will inhibit the cell processes that produce proteins and energy for the plant. It can be very toxic, so be careful. The last one I'm going to talk about is zinc. And zinc helps certain enzymes in the plant with metabolism. And that's basically across almost all crops. Deficiency means protein, carb, and chlorophyll production is severely limited in the plant. And just like iron, too much zinc can be toxic. It reduces growth and respiration in the plant. And then weirdly enough, too much zinc will inhibit the uptake of iron into the plant. You can see how balance is so necessary. I have a soil analysis that I had done from Stephen F. Austin University a few years back, and this is just an example because things have changed in my garden. So one of the reasons why getting a lab analysis is so important is that they will recommend amendments for your soil to overcome deficiencies or excesses. Let me put this up on the screen. I'll tell you why I don't use Stephen F. Austin anymore, and then I'll talk about the new company that we are using. Okay, you can see that our soil pH is actually 7.12. And that is, if you go over to calcium, a direct result of our very high level in calcium. East Texas is known for acidic soil, so over the years, a lot of farmers have dumped way too much calcium and only calcium on the soil. You can see a normal range actually is 430 to 540. And mine is 5,439. That's nuts. And we mentioned that too much calcium inhibits the uptake of other nutrients into the plant. You can see this soils test tested for salinity, which it didn't tell me what sodium level was in my soil, but you can see it's very low. Sulfur was low. My iron, manganese, zinc, and copper were high, and I wish they would have told me what the levels were on those. You see, my nitrogen level was high because 40 is a good level. You can see my potassium was very, very low. Calcium was off the charts, magnesium was low, and my sodium was low. We are going to take some soil samples and send them to a company called Kinsey. I'm going to use this, which is a soil sample tool. It's a core sampler, and it gets straight down and samples every layer of the soil that you have. Kinsey recommends that for no-till that you go 4 to 6 inches, and for tilled areas you go 6 to 8. So we're going to push it down into the soil basically up to about right here. And we're going to write on the bag where the sample is taken from. I don't have a relationship with the Kinsey lab, but it was recommended to me by a friend that I am learning all of the soil chemistry from. He's been a market gardener and sold produce from his market garden farm. It's called Golden Moment Farm. It's in Kentucky. He's been doing that for 31 years. And he's been doing soil analysis recommendations for people for about 15 years. Kinsey will make recommendations when you get their report back, but those recommendations are synthetic chemicals. What my friend does is recommend organic solutions to those synthetic chemicals to change your soil chemistry. Let's show you how to take that sample. So wherever you are in your garden, it's basically just shoving it down into the soil. You can see the different layers of the things that I've added on the top of the soil here, and then what my more native soil down here is, more of a sandy loam that's got a decent amount of red clay in it. You want all these layers so that the lab can get a proper analysis, because obviously the roots of your plants are going to go down into this. I have 11 raised beds here in the garden, and those raised beds are built directly on top of the native soil. And I need to take at least 7 different core samples from around this garden and give them roughly about 2 cups of soil. That will help them do a good thorough analysis of everything. So I'm also going to take a sample of the soil here in the greenhouse. Now, even though this is way different soil than what I have out there, and it is purchased soil, that's how I filled up these beds, I still need to know what's in it. Things produce in here better, but that soil is going to be depleted over time, and I need to know if I'm adding the right things to it. The nice thing about the Kinsey lab is that they will test for everything that I mentioned here in the video. And they do offer 2 extra tests for the cobalt and the molybdenum. So if you're paying already $15 for one of these in the store and probably $10 for one of these, maybe actually a little bit more on Amazon for each one of them, the Kinsey test, giving you all that information, is only $78. So one of those little store-bought kits is not giving you the information you need, and the price difference is not that great. I highly recommend getting one of those soils tests and not wasting your money on that thing. If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comments section below. Now go check out this video right here, which talks about what a good soil is versus a bad soil. Have a beautiful, blessed day. We'll see you next time. Bye.